All right, we're live. Hello, everyone. Let me go and click Instagram. Maybe Instagram is giving us a little bit of problem. I think we got it. All right. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Nelson. I am in Central Florida. Please put down here where you're watching from. And I hope you're having a great day. Hello, everyone who's saying hello to me there. I'm by myself, so I'm not able to go back and forth and answer. But if you have any questions, we're going to be talking with Chris Spath. And if you have any questions, put them in the chat with a QQQ, and I'll try to catch them, and we can then ask him questions. I'm near Orlando, Chris. Where are you today?
I am in Gilbert, Arizona. So
Arizona.
that's suburb just outside of Phoenix. Yeah.
And Arizona doesn't switch times back and forth, correct?
That's correct. Our clock stays the same year round, which is nice on from one aspect because we don't have to worry about that, but it can get a little confusing when you're working with or talking to people in other time zones and yeah, well, what time of year is it and what time is it there? 2 hours, 3 hours? You have to kind of figure that out.
Yeah. So we are at a few minutes after 3 here. What's your time over there?
It is 12:01.
12:01. So you're 3 hours. All right. Uh, so when we go back to the standard time, we're in daylight savings time. We go back to standard time is only 2 hours,
That's
right?
correct.
All right.
Yeah, technically our time zone is called Mountain Standard Time, and it stays year round, so it's always
So
standard
you
time.
always stay on standard time,
Yeah,
basically. Oh, everybody else. I think there's a couple of other places that do that. Some cities even within that can get confusing.
yeah.
Anyways, uh, so I'm gonna read a little bio on Chris, and then we're gonna talk to him. Chris Spath exemplifies the profound impact of diet and lifestyle on health. Over the past 7 years, his commitment to a carnivore diet has led to a remarkable transformation, losing over 100 pounds, reversing type 2 diabetes, and alleviating numerous other health ailments. As a dedicated stay at home father, Chris not only homeschools his two children, but also actively supports his wife, Laura Spath, in her YouTube endeavors to share the carnivore message. At 50, Chris maintains an incredibly active lifestyle, training Brazilian Jiu Jitsu alongside his children and hitting the gym daily, truly embracing life to its fullest. And I am always amazed by stories of healing. And I am a traditionally trained physician, a medical doctor, I'm a family practitioner who learned in medical school that once you have type 2 diabetes is a chronic disease that never goes away, and because it's genetic or because you, the luck of the draw, you have diabetes, now you're going to have to be on medication for the rest of your life, uh, or something to that effect. uh, So my first question to you, yes or no, can diabetes be reversed?
Um, yes.
Okay. Uh,
Excuse me.
I'm setting you up for obviously. Now I think that nobody should really know what type 2 diabetes is. And what I mean is, it shouldn't be a common thing. It shouldn't be something, it should be rare. And even when I graduated from medical school, which was a long, long time ago in a galaxy far away, uh, it wasn't common. Most patients, diabetics, uh, they when they were we diagnosed them, we would send them to the endocrinologist to be managed, and then throughout the years, it became more and more the job of the primary care provider, the family physician, because nowadays it's so common. If there is any primary care doctor that does not know how to manage at least diabetes, uh, maybe they need to look for another profession, because it's too common. And so when I say should nobody should know about it, is it should be so rare, because maybe a 5% of the people who have diabetes, it's because of other reasons in addition to our food intake. But
Right.
I love talking to people who have had remarkable changes, uh, whether it's diabetes, although that's my favorite one to talk about and to help other people reverse. Uh, and I continue to be, even though among the carnivores and keto seems to be a common thing, and sometimes we take it for granted. But yes, if you have diabetes, it can be reversed. I didn't say it was easy, but for some people, it seems to be easy. So, Chris, tell us about your story, the before, during, and after, please.
All right. So, all my life, even when I was a kid, I was a chubby kid. I loved to eat all the junk. Um, Parents always fought with me to eat my vegetables, that sort of thing. I hated vegetables, and I always loved meat, ironically, but I always ate lots of bread and dessert afterwards. So that wasn't such a great thing. And then over the years, in my 20s, I joined the Air Force. I was in the military, and even when I was in the military, to get in, I had to lose 60 pounds, I think it was, when I was like 19 years old, to be able to join the Air Force. And then when I was in the Air Force, I got put on the weight management program because my weight was too much for the standards and whatnot. So I had to go check in every month and weigh in and be careful of it. Well, after that 4 years was up and I got out of the Air Force, I didn't have those boundaries on me anymore. So I just kind of lived life and slowly got more unhealthy over the years, just eating whatever I wanted and gain weight and gain weight and gain weight. And then it got to be, I guess it was almost 10 years ago now. Well, a little longer than that, about 15 years ago, actually. I was around 300 pounds and I got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Out of nowhere, I started like peeing all the time, which was my first sign something was up. I couldn't stop peeing, and then went to the doctor, and sure enough, my A1C was like 11 or something, and I was diabetic. And they put me on metformin, and they told me this is just the way it's going to be. You should try to lose some weight and exercise, but you're going to take medication, and then eventually you have to take insulin shots and whatnot, was what the doctor told me. And I was motivated a little bit at that time. I lost a little bit of weight doing low carbish because I had tried that a couple times in my life, and it was pretty effective for me. But it didn't stay gone, and gained some weight, all the weight back. And then in 2016, it was actually Christmas Day, 2016. I know the date like it's back of my hand. It's Christmas Eve. I had a blister on my elbow that had popped and started getting red and getting hot. And I knew from some of my past medical training that there was an infection. So I tried to stick it out. But Christmas morning, I wound up telling the wife before we opened presents, I got to go to the hospital. And she was not happy about that. And then went to the hospital, and they admitted me right away. And I spent the next 7 weeks there. I had necrotizing fasciitis, or flesh-eating disease, on my arm, and had about 12 surgeries of them removing all that flesh and doing skin grafts and all sorts of things to fix that. And then after coming out of that, I spent the next year kind of recovering and researching why this happened to me. And I, had two small kids at the time, and I wanted to be around for them. So I didn't want that something like that to happen again. So I quickly found out that that was something very common for type 2 diabetics. And so then I started going down rabbit holes of what can I do about my type 2 diabetes outside of the advice the doctor had given me. And that's when I found like the keto world, the fasting world, and I immediately jumped right in. And I found Dr. Jason Fung, and talked about intermittent fasting and doing things like this. And so I immediately jumped in doing like a low carb keto and intermittent fasting. And within about a month, I'm just like a research nerd. When I get onto something, I just was watching all the videos and learning all the things and reading all the materials. And I found the carnivores. And, I talked about how I hated vegetables when I was a kid. I was like, yes, I don't have to force myself to eat this disgusting broccoli anymore. So I went to carnivore, and my morning blood sugar, was normal within a month or so. And the weight was just falling off. And after my last doctor's appointment before that, my A1C was 11.6, and my doctor was going to send me to an endocrinologist to get on insulin. And I told him, give me 3 months, doc. And he said, okay, I'll see you in 3 months. Well, I didn't come back for 9 months. When I came back, I was down 115 pounds, and my A1C was 4.9. And I felt incredible. And he just wrote on my file, he just put the type 2 diabetes resolved, and just took it off essentially. And I haven't been back to the doctor in 6 years for anything other than really nothing. So, yeah,
Did he ask you what you had done?
he
I mean,
did. He
okay.
did casually kind of, oh, what did you do? I was like, oh, I'm doing carnivore. And then he's like, oh, okay. And then he looks down, he's looking at the blood work, and he goes, well, your LDL's pretty high. I'm gonna have to prescribe you a statin. And I said, oh, I'm good. Thanks, doc. And then moved on. So I stayed on this way of eating and for the last 7 years now. And you talk about, is diabetes reversible and stuff, one of the first things I did, because you hear people say, well, yeah, but as soon as you eat something bad, your blood sugar is going to go back up, and you're still type 2 diabetic. You're just managing it with your diet or whatever. So one of the first things I did, and I don't recommend this, but I was in California visiting some friends, and I went and got my favorite burrito, which was like a 2-pound burrito. And I got a candy bar, and I ate the whole burrito and the candy bar. And then I sat there with my glucose monitor and tested my glucose afterwards, postprandial, to see what it did. And it went up to about 150 at the highest and came right back down to normal over the next few hours, and that was, I did the calculation, it was over 100 grams of carbs in one meal. And I was like, well, I mean, at least right now, you can't find any way to get me to find diabetes in me at all. So I consider it good. Now, I don't do that at all, so 7 years now, I continue to eat this way just because I love it and I feel my best. And I don't want to ever go back. I know that if I said, oh, well, I've reached these goals, I can kind of moderate, and I can just eat a little bit of this bad stuff and do that. That's like playing with fire. It's like I was drinking and I was an alcoholic, and now I'm just going to have one drink a week. That's not going to work for me. I don't play with that kind of fire. So I basically look at it as just the way I am now, and the way it's always going to be moving forward.
Well, it's an interesting response from people because, sometimes rather than, oh, congratulations, stick with that. No, you know, you you still have something wrong, and that might be true. By the way, you may have some insulin resistance still, even if the numbers are better.
Mhm.
But what is the alternative? Go back to eating the way you were eating
Right.
before just because you didn't get to perfection on the other side?
Right. And I
That
have
would be.
no, I was unhealthy mess for a long time. And like I tell my wife all the time, I've done what I can do in this body after all the damage I did. And I might have a heart attack tomorrow, but I know it's not because what I'm doing right now. It's the years and years of damage I did. And a lot of that's permanent. I know that. And a lot of it's reversible. And I feel like I've reversed the parts that are reversible. And I'm doing the best I can moving forward. And hopefully that's a long, productive life.
And that's one of the things. It's very important that if you reduce your risks, it doesn't it so this diet is not gonna make you immortal,
Right.
right? Uh, but if you can at least feel better and not have the same health issues, is it worth it? Because even if you don't spend, even if you don't increase your life expectancy, if you increase significantly your quality of life, is that worth it? To me, it is. Uh, all right, so I have a couple of questions and comments from you. I didn't want to interrupt what you were saying.
Sure.
By the way, today is day 7 of my fasting. Dr. Kills is on day 11 today, so we're both fasting. We'll see. He says that he's going to go to 14 days, or this morning he mentioned 15 days. So we'll see. I don't have a predetermined goal uh, set at the moment. I'm feeling good. What is your longest fast?
My longest fast was 7 days. So
7 days.
in that first 9 months, I started eating 2 meals a day, 4 hours apart. I would eat like breakfast and lunch. And then I've always been like a volume eater. So it was really hard for me to do that. So I went to 1 meal a day pretty quickly. And because I can eat a lot, I would eat 3,000, 4,000 calories in 1 meal every day. And I did that for that whole 9 months. I still do that to this day for 7 years straight. But I would mix in during that 9 months, I would do like a 48-hour fast, maybe once every week or 10 days or so. And then a 72-hour fast, maybe once a month. And then one time I did a 7-day fast, and that was my longest one.
All right. I think that's a pretty good schedule. Obviously, mentioned Dr. Fong. He's one of his favorite things to talk about.
Yeah.
And I think exactly what you just mentioned is probably an ideal situation. I always mention to people, you don't have to do what I'm doing right now. Definitely don't do this at home if you don't, especially if you haven't worked yourself up to it. But if you throw in a day a week that you skip from eating, that usually makes it 36 to 48 hours, depending on the hours you eat on both ends. And then once in a while, do a 3 day. Maybe once a year, you can do a 7 day. Just that probably is fine. My longest had been 10 days back in April. So we'll see how long it lasts. This time I'm having occasion. Well, I still drink coffee a little bit. I put some butter in it and a couple of tablespoons of heavy whipping cream, and I'm still doing that. So I am having some mostly fat, uh, but it's not a lot. I mean, and then I have some salt, and I put salt in big cup, and usually drink that during the day. Uh, Air Force. How long did you serve?
Just 4 years.
4 years. Okay.
Yeah.
So I have never served. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Uh, I've never served, but I have been in an Air Force base for 5 months in the emergency room of a hospital.
Mm.
I also spent 2 months in the emergency room of a Navy hospital and spent 2 months in a VA facility, VA hospital, also in the emergency room. And always had the impression from what I saw on the side as a civilian that the Air Force is one of the branches that treats their people the best. So, you know,
It's kind of
whenever
an
I have,
ongoing joke between branches. Yeah.
yeah. So, of course, there's a lot of jokes about the different things. Anyways, uh, you also mentioned keto didn't stick, or you didn't stick with keto, whichever way.
Right.
Uh, and that is a common problem. And I see it as a problem because the thing is, you change the way you're eating, you achieve some goal to where you're satisfied, and then you go back to, to eating the way you were eating before. Well, of course,
Yeah.
uh, the results speak for themselves. So I have done this the same thing over the past 35 years or so. I have used keto, Atkins diet basically, and I whether I lost 20, 30, or 40 pounds, which would be somewhere between 20 and 40. And once I got to that, oh, I feel good. I went back to
Right.
eating the same way. How tall are you?
6 foot.
6 foot. Okay. Well, I'm not 6 foot. I'm barely make it to 5'7". As a matter of fact, I don't make it to 5'7". I'm 5'6" and a half or something like that. And this was me at about 310 pounds, I think. Uh, so I was really vertically challenged. I could have been skinny if I was 6'8". And I'm not even skinny at that way, but
Right.
anyways, uh, you in the bio, we've mentioned you're married and you have two kids. How often you go to the gym with them for practicing? You practice Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. So we started a little over 4 years ago. It started with the kids. We took them to find something to do. Like when COVID was going on, we wanted to find them something to do, and we found a jujitsu gym that was things were pretty normal there and wasn't too crazy for them to go to. And they started going there, and they really loved it. And within a few months, some of the other dads trained as well, and they just kept asking me, what's your excuse? Why aren't you out here? And so I signed up and I started doing it, and then it became, I can't stop, because my kids see me, that if I can stop, then they can stop, So, and I enjoyed it, I'd go to train at least 3 days a week is my goal, and they go 4 to 5 times a week. But our classes are at a different time. You can see this on my face right now. I just came from class before here, and I got kind of worked over today. So it's a physical challenge, and it's really high intensity exercise where class is only an hour, but it's like you go for an hour and you're done for the day. But it challenges you mentally and physically in all kinds of ways. And it's also very there's a brotherhood with the other guys you're training with, and uh, real family environment with the parents and the other kids and whatnot. So it's became a whole thing in our life. And, I take the kids to their class. They come with me to my class and sit and watch while I'm training. And it's a whole thing.
So I do have one question here. Uh, let's bring this up. Have you recovered from your skin reduction surgery?
Yeah. So it's been about a year and a half now since that. So that was, it's a pretty rough couple months, I guess. and then it's just like you're 90% for quite a while. And now this far out, I feel 100%. I don't notice it at all. The scar looks pretty good. You don't really see it or anything. It's pretty faint. So I'm pretty happy with the results from that.
Okay. Uh, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. If you put QQQ, it's easier for me to see. Uh, Papa Carnivore says that he was in Gilbert in 1992, and it was nothing but cow pastures. Now it's all houses.
Yep, it has exploded. That's for sure.
All right. 1992, by the way, one of my sons was born in 1992, and he is the one that has a son. I have a grandson. Uh, your kids are still small enough that you're not thinking of that. How old are they?
11 and 9.
Okay. So you only eat once a day.
Yes.
And what's your usual meal look like?
Um, so today I have 2 big New York strips that I'm going to have right after this, and they combined weigh just under 2 pounds. So it's roughly 2 pounds of meat. Usually that's mostly beef. Sometimes it's maybe a big steak and 3 or 4 chicken thighs, or a big steak and a half a pound of pork belly or something like that. I try to usually have 2 different meats, kind of like a main course and a side, but it's almost always a steak, and then a side of some sort of chicken or pork, or sometimes fish. I like sea bass and stuff like that, but I don't get to eat that very often because nobody likes the smell in the house when I do that. But
When you eat
yeah,
fish, do you eat sashimi style, raw fish, or do you usually cook it?
usually cooked. I've never really cared for the sashimi style. I'll get like some big sea bass or cod or halibut fillets and just like pan sear them in butter, and that's the best to me.
All right. I like salmon, and I eat it raw. Uh, Usually just freeze it for about a month and then take it out and defrost it and then eat it. That, according to the FDA, that decreases your chances of getting any parasites from fish. Uh, all right. I have one more question here. What does Chris do for a day job? Sandra Harding. Uh, if you're not a fan of, he's not often on social media, but his wife is, and obviously, if you have been listening to their story or my bio that I read, I mentioned what he does. But what do you do for?
So I do not have a day job. Well, not a typical day job.
You do.
So my wife works a full time job, and she does a lot of social media stuff. So that takes up a lot of her time. So I take care of the house. I take care of the kids. I homeschool both of them. So, and I help her on some of the back end stuff for a lot of the social media stuff she's doing, and production, video production, that sort of thing. Like, whenever she's making videos, we're doing that together, sort of thing.
What time of the day does Chris usually eat that one meal?
So my typical mealtime is lunch. I found that breakfast is kind of easy to skip, so I'm not really hungry first thing in the morning. So lunch is when I start to really get hungry. And then I eat so much, like I mentioned earlier, I'm a volume eater. So I'll eat so much that I'm not hungry for any dinner. So it's easy to make it to bedtime. That's just kind of how it evolved naturally. It was like, if I eat all this food at lunch, I'm not hungry when I go to bed and I'm not hungry when I wake up. And it just kind of worked out to the perfect time for me.
How difficult is that? And I've made this comment before. I love uh, Laura's simplicity sometimes to approach the diet. How difficult is it? Because some people think, oh, this is so restrictive, and they have many negative comments regarding the carnivore diet and how restrictive might be. What do you think?
um, I'm not gonna. Well, I don't feel like the restrictive aspect of it is difficult for me because ever since I can remember, if you said you're on a desert island, you could only have one food forever, what would it be? It would be a perfectly cooked steak. So I get to eat my favorite food all the time. Now, sure, I still fantasize about pizza and ice cream, and those things are amazing, and I have to have the discipline to avoid those things, but I have the results of avoiding those things. So when you weigh the consequences of eating that way versus, the not being able to have them, it's kind of a no-brainer. And then another aspect of it is when you're doing it and it's so important to you and you're doing it for a long time, you really make it a passion for your life and for yourself. So learning how to cook, learning about meat, learning different techniques, investing in that part of your life. So uh, maybe you're adjusting your budget to um, get this better kind of cooking situation or this tool for the kitchen or buying a better quality steaks or whatever the case may be, so that you still have a tremendous amount of joy every time you eat because it's the best it could be. That you cook that steak perfectly on the right kind of with the right cooking method and whatnot. And when you're hungry and you take a bite of it, no matter if it's the thousandth day in a row, it's amazing and it doesn't feel bad. If I had to really, like, if I felt that it was any kind of suffering or like that's not the right word, but lack of enjoyment, like if it was just not good, that would make it really hard for me. And I could see how that could really help some people. So I would advise anybody to just like get on YouTube and like look up the best cooking chefs that do this and emulate their techniques. It's not always expensive either. Maybe it's a cast iron pan and a oven, and the right techniques and practice and practice. And you're doing it every day. So you're going to get good at it. And then being proud, that you could put that in front of somebody and they bite it and they go, man, this is better than a restaurant. Like sometimes we'll go to a restaurant and I'll be like, I could make better than this at home. This is trash, and that's made it kind of funness to it that is rewarding and keeps you going.
What's your favorite cut of steak?
My favorite cut is the picanha,
Okay.
which a lot of people may not be familiar with that, but it's the sirloin cap. But Brazil, they
Oh,
call it picanha, which is where it's famous from. And I probably 75% of the time, that's what I'm eating.
so my favorite cut, it will be a ribeye, but I think everybody that listens to me here knows what my second favorite is. I got four of those in the freezer right now for picanhas, and uh, I normally slice them into steaks, about an inch and a half, inch and a quarter, I put them on a tray, put some salt on it, stick it in the refrigerator, and eat them over the next several days. Usually, I can get about the ones I've been buying lately. They have been fairly big. Sometimes the picanha is very small, depending on the uh, animal's age, I guess. But I have the picanhas I have right now are almost 4 pounds each.
Wow, that's big.
Uh, so I can get probably a good 7, 8 steaks, sometimes 10 if I slice them a little bit thinner. And I basically put them in the sort of dry age them, no more than 3 to 4, 5 days, because they are gone after that. But yeah, the picanha is also called rump cap, top sirloin cap, uh,
Kula,
culotte
kula.
steak,
Yeah.
culotte steaks, and there's a couple of other names less common. Some people don't know it, and I was surprised to hear from someone that their butcher kept telling them that it was the same as the tri-tip. And I was surprised because the tri-tip, see the picanha and the tri-tip basically are the top and the bottom of the sirloin primal section.
Mhm.
The the picanha is at the very top, and the tri-tip is at the very bottom. And even though they are both sort of triangular, they do have a little bit different shape when you take a look at them.
Yeah,
I
that's
actually
good.
haven't had tri-tip myself, uh, but it's part of the sirloin. Usually, anyway, beef from anywhere in the cow, it's good for me.
Yeah, I cook. I cook my picanha the same way. I slice it into about 1.5 inches with the grain, and then when you eat it, you cut across the grain. And I usually the ones I'm getting are between 3 and 3.5 pounds, and I'll eat that over 2 days. And I just grill them, and fantastic. And then tri tips, we do tri tips quite often here because on the West Coast, there's a lot of tri tips in the stores. It's for some reason on the East Coast, it's a lot harder to find. But tri tips are actually quite a bit different than picanha, even though they look similar, especially if they have the fat on them. But I'll sous vide those or smoke them, and then finish them on the grill, and then just slice them real thin, whole, and then slice them thin when you cook them, and it's pretty good. But it's not picanha.
Well, it's I mean they're obviously like we mentioned at the top and the bottom of the primal sirloin section, and I'm still looking forward to tasting one. I don't remember if I don't think I've had it. So we'll see. Uh, I'm searching for something here. Okay. So, so here we go. So this is one of the ones I have. So there are 3, 7. Now this one almost doesn't count. Uh, have you ever had how do you cook them? To what point? Medium well, rare.
Medium rare. So I'll cook them on the grill, high heat, and I will use a probe thermometer. And when they get to about 110 degrees internal, I'll take them off, and then the temperature will come up to the high 120s or so when it's after resting, and perfection every time.
Okay. Ever eat rare? I mean, not rare, raw. I mean,
I've tried raw. I don't care for it. We spent last year. We spent 3 months living in Spain, in Madrid,
okay.
and when you get a steak there, it's always rare, not raw, but rare. Like you ask them to cook it medium rare, they look at you like
What are
they
you
don't know.
doing?
Yeah, they don't know what you're talking about. I even had a chef at one of the restaurants say, "I will cook it the way it's meant to be eaten," and basically just said no. And so I stopped asking. But it's blue in the middle, and I quite enjoyed it. If the meat's good, it's good.
So here we have another picanha that I caught. This one was ended up with uh, about 6 good sized steaks and 5 that were really uh, small. But yeah, one of my favorite cuts. So yeah, number 2. But like I said, I will have anything: shanks, oxtails, all the not usual cuts, no problem. Uh, so usually you'd like to use the grill. Do you do any tougher cuts like a rump or oxtails? Is not something that lends itself for the grill. Do you ever eat oxtails?
So we have multiple different options. Like I talked about investing in what you're doing. We have we have a griddle, we have a smoker, and we have a gas grill. So the gas grill I use probably 90+% of the time because it's so easy and quick, and you don't have to clean it up really. It's just easy, and it's probably the best method for most things. So things like you're talking about, we don't do that often, but if when I do, I use the smoker. So I'll do things like like a chuck roast, but I'll do that in the smoker and almost cook it like a brisket, or make like kind of like burnt ends with it. Um, um, we'll do like a pork loin roast in the smoker. That comes out really well. Occasionally, we've done in the past where we would do like a rump roast or something like that, and then like not eat it fresh because it's pretty tough, even if you unless you do it like really low and slow and shred it sort of thing. So we would like smoke that to almost like a medium rare, but then put it in the refrigerator and then slice it almost like deli meat. Make like your homemade deli meat, and then you can kind of eat off that out of the refrigerator.
Okay. Do you ever eat anything that is not from an animal, like a fruit or?
No fruit. Seasonings. We use spices on our food. Don't have any issues with that. I like spicy stuff, so occasionally I'll use a little bit of hot sauce. And we're talking like a quarter teaspoon of like ghost pepper hot sauce or something. I'll put on the side of my plate and kind of dip my bites in it here and there. Um, that's about the extent of it. Yeah.
I have some ghost peppers in a jar in the refrigerator.
There
I
you go.
used I used to make all kinds of hot sauces: habanero, ghost pepper,
Yeah.
Carolina Reaper. I don't that much anymore, uh, so I don't use. But I'll put a little bit of hot sauce sometimes on a piece of steak with some mix it with some butter and use that as my sauce. Um, all right, I think I have a question here. All right, so this is a question that I'm sure you guys get often. Did you or your wife start this diet together? Well, which
So
one
we
start?
we both made the decision we were going to do it at the same time, and she started. We both were going to start keto. I had a trip planned back east to see my dad, so she started like a couple weeks before me, and I was like, well, I'm going to New Jersey, I'm going to eat this pizza out there. So I waited and started when I got back from that trip. So we made the decision together. She started a couple weeks before me, and then everything since has just been together. Yeah. I started carnivore first. I switched to that pretty early. I mean, because I just hated vegetables and whatnot. And she thought I was crazy, but I did most of the cooking. So there was a week went by where she had no vegetables because I didn't make anything for her. And then she had a salad and felt sick about it and said, well, maybe there's something to this. And then she cut it out and felt better too, as well, like that.
All right. How did you decide how to adjust Laura's intake to jumpstart her weight loss again? Can't seem to add a lot more fat. There are poop issues, and I can move the needle. I'm likely nearing ideal weight.
Okay. Yeah. So a couple of things there that I'll say just from my years of experience in this being around lots of people doing this and talking to them through challenges and whatnot, and expertise I've gleaned from other real experts. So my wife was like, her weight was fine, but like a little more than she wanted to be and fluctuating. And to me, it was easy to tell what was wrong. She wasn't eating enough and she was eating too lean for a while. And so the scale was moved. She's like, but I'm hardly eating. You've given people this advice. You know what you're doing. Like, so she was kind of having decision fatigue on what I say, okay, I'm going to prepare your food and you'll eat what I put in front of you and watch what happens. And so I started making her 2 meals a day instead of one. I made her breakfast every morning. It would be like bacon and eggs, like a lot of bacon and eggs. And then I would make her lunch and I would change. She likes leaner cuts like filet, and she likes, skirt steak or things that are a little bit more on the leaner side. So I started putting ribeyes and chuck eyes in front of her and with pork belly on the side, things like that. So all I did was essentially increase the amount she was eating and the percentage of fat. Not a lot. I'm not like giving her globs of tallow on top or butter sticks to eat or anything like that. It's just like, here, you're going to eat 25% more. And that 25% is mostly going to come from fat. And within, I don't know, what is it, 4 or 6 weeks or whatever, she lost like 20 pounds or something crazy like that. And she's just like, okay. And then I just kept feeding her that way, and so the second thing you talked about, likely nearing my ideal weight. I also see a lot of people that maybe like think what their ideal weight should be is one thing based on some chart. I'm this tall, I should be this thin, or I have a friend who's this age and this thing. But like all of us are different, and where your ideal is, like I found for me, I got down to a certain weight, and for me to go any lower, I had to really restrict. And that tells me that based on my body and my age and my activity levels, that's not healthy. It's not ideal, right? Maybe ideal isn't what I want in the mirror or the size clothes or the number on the scale, but that's ideal what my body wants. I have to understand too that my body made a lot of extra fat cells over those years. Those don't just go away. They empty out, but they're still there. And yes, I had some of the empty ones removed when I had that surgery, because it was a big bag of empty fat around my belly, but it's still elsewhere, right? So that weighs something. So if I went in and had it all chopped off, maybe I would be that number on the chart, but I'm not. I am what I am. So maybe my ideal weight on a chart is 180 pounds, but 195 is where I can not restrict and be fine right there, because that's what my ideal weight is. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about that. And sometimes it's really hard to push that last 10 pounds or whatever. Well, maybe your body doesn't want to lose that last 10. Maybe you don't need to lose that last 10.
Definitely,
So
your
maybe
body
that's right
doesn't
where
want
you're
to.
supposed to be.
Yeah, your body doesn't want to lose weight, by the way.
Right.
It's always trying to keep what it has, and maybe that ideal body weight is, like you said, according to a table, according to what you want to look like, not what your body is thinking. If you're giving the adequate amount of food and the right amount of food, your body either will eventually get there or just doesn't want to go lower. And I think both of you uh, have mentioned things like this, that when you got to a certain weight that was very low, you were not feeling your best.
Yeah. Laura
You were
had a lot of
feeling
problems with that. Laura got down pretty low and was hair falling out and, just hormone issues and just like, and miserable because you're having to do all this to stay that way, like, well, maybe that's not where you should be. And I think right now she's right where she should be. And I feel I'm right about there too.
and I want to make this comment also, Chris. You are an expert. You have you you know the expertise doesn't come with any degrees. You have for 7 years maintained this lifestyle, and you've gotten to a place where health wise you feel a lot better than you did before you started. You have reverse diseases, and I mean, and you have been even coaching, because you do that within your community, right?
Right.
So you are an expert.
Thank you.
uh let's see, I thought I saw another question around here. If you have any other questions, please put them. What do your oh, I have Tom is fasting 69 hours. All righty. uh 7 years, most of your circle, family and friends, probably know what you do, right? As far as eating,
Yeah.
after 7 years, what do they think? Are there Were they at the beginning reluctant to accept what you were doing? And is there anyone that has converted to carnivore?
Luckily, I don't think either one of us had any family pushback. I know we've had a couple friends that maybe uh, didn't push back, but just kind of like withdrew a little bit, because they didn't want to face their own demons. So sometimes when somebody, maybe they need to be doing it as well and they don't want to, or they can't face that, they'll kind of avoid you, um, because it forces them to confront their own challenges. So we had a little bit of that, but our family's been pretty supportive. And yes, we did have quite a few people that converted, and Laura's mom was one that at first she was like didn't really believe it, but then she jumped in, and she was type 2 diabetes too, and she wound up reversing that. And um, a couple other people on her side of the family, uncles and things. My sister lost over 100 pounds and she's doing great. She's been doing carnivore now for a few years. Um, yeah. I have a few friends just that, were typical dads with their big beer bellies and whatnot, and started doing it, and they kind of come and go off it and on, but they know it works and they've seen it, what it's done for me. So they use it as a tool in their toolbox when they need to get right.
uh you mentioned you had been on metformin. Was there any other medication you came off when
Yeah.
you
So at the time when I started for diabetes, I was on metformin and glyburide,
okay?
and I stopped taking the glyburide right away because when I started researching about what that was doing, that's just the one that makes you pee out the sugar and stuff. I stopped that one immediately, and then I kept taking the metformin, but After a few weeks, when my blood sugar was normal every morning, I just kind of cut the dose in half, and my blood sugar was still normal, and I stopped taking it completely, and it was still normal, and I just never took it again after that. But I was also on medication for blood pressure, and after about a month and a half, 2 months, I was at the gym one day and I just felt super lightheaded and dizzy. And I was like, I didn't know what was going on. And I kept getting that feeling. And then when I was in like a Walgreens or a Walmart where they have one of those blood pressure little things you sit in, and I did it, and it was, my blood pressure was like 105/60 or something, like low like that. And I was taking blood pressure medication. I was like, well, so I stopped taking that, and then I stopped having those dizzy spells. And then,
Do you remember the name of the medication?
no,
Okay. Do you remember how many milligrams it was?
I was on, maybe I do remember, 20 milligrams of
Probably lisinopril.
lisinopril. Yeah, lisinopril.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
lisinopril, amlodipine, metoprolol, any of the ACE inhibitors, losartan. Those are the most commonly prescribed first line.
Yeah.
And I was taking 40 milligrams of lisinopril. I was also taking 300 milligrams of metoprolol. I had had a stroke in 2018, the same year I started taking blood pressure medication. Uh, so when I went carnivore, took me about 7.5 months, and I tapered slowly both medications. And the very last time I took any medicine was February 14th of 24. And I do remember the day because the 15th is my birthday. And the morning of my birthday, I passed out from my blood pressure being too low. So the day before was the last time I took any blood pressure medication. But uh, I mean, it's really made a change. And I know it has made a change in your life, because if you have not extended your life by even one day, your quality of life is different, right?
For
So
sure. Big time.
don't know about you, but I wouldn't make it. Especially, one of my favorite things was apple fritters. Uh, Obviously not the, and even I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, so my typical food there, everything that we eat normally as a healthy food, I can't have it. I cannot have it. I'm very sensitive to carbohydrates. Uh, so you mentioned you haven't been to the doctor. ha- You haven't had any blood work. When was? Do you
I
remember
have,
your last hemoglobin A1C?
yeah, I have had blood work. That's the only time I've gone to the doctor, is just to get them to give me a
Okay.
order to blood work. Um, Last time I had it done was about a year ago, and my A1C was 5.1.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds like a great number. So,
My fasted
it,
insulin was 4.
all right. So we'll take this last question. Marion asked, "Do you have an Instapot or any pressure cooker? What meats do or can you cook in it? I got one and looking for ideas. Thanks."
Uh, we had one for a minute and we never used it, so we gave it to somebody or sold it. I can't remember, but the only thing that comes to mind that we did do in it that is fun is like short ribs, something like that. You could either do like real short ribs or even like the mock short ribs, which are like basically big chunks of chuck. That's really good in there. I know that. You could probably even do things like pork belly and or pork shoulder, anything you want to get something that normally take you 10 hours to do in an oven, you can do in an hour or two in a pressure cooker. So I would go for those sorts of things. You could jump on YouTube. I mean, people are very creative, and you can find anything. I'm sure there's carnivore recipes for pressure cooker. You can just search that, and people will come up with stuff.
So pretty much all pressure cookers, maybe not the older ones, but all pressure cookers can be used as a slow cooker as well. So you anything that you would slow cook, you can also do under pressure faster, and that usually means the tougher cuts of meat. I don't know that you would put a ribeye in a pressure cooker, not even a picanha. Picanha is a little bit, it's still pretty good. I obviously it's not a ribeye, but uh, is fine with picanha. But anything that's tough, then you can do it in a pressure cooker. Just like you mentioned, you can look around, especially on YouTube. You'll find a lot of videos, a lot of recipes on what to do. Uh, One last question: what do you normally? And you're the one who's usually taking care of the kids in the house and cooking for the kids. What do they normally eat?
So the kids, they're not carnivore, but we do keep their carbs lowish, and we keep junk out of the house essentially. So they'll eat. We prioritize protein. So like I'm gonna make lunch right now. My daughter will eat. She'll eat a 10, 12-ounce steak every day. Like she loves it. I usually grill her some sort of vegetable like zucchini or asparagus or something like that. She enjoys that, or she'll have a salad. And then they'll usually have one kind of like, uh, they call it their sugar because they're kind of educated on this, but it's not actually sugar sweet or something. It might be like sweet potato chips, or we have some like almond flour crackers or something like that. So they're getting kind of like a mix of textures and different things like that. Now they'll go to their friend's house for a party or something, and they'll have pizza and the ice cream with them, whatever. But we're really trying to teach them, that your main foods are like prioritize this meat. You can have vegetables if you want. My son never eats vegetables; he hates them, but my daughter does. And then we got to keep our sugars or carbohydrates lowish, and they do pretty well with that. Morning for breakfast, they sausage, bacon, eggs, and then they'll have like some strawberries or blueberries or something like that with it.
All righty. Chris, thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
And your social activity, your social networks activity is mostly your wife's, right?
Yeah.
So where can we find you guys? Where can we find
So
your community, for example?
Spath on YouTube. Obviously, I'm on a bunch of videos there too. But our community, or her community that I'm involved into, is laurspath.locals.com. And there is it's kind of like a private Facebook group, but it's not on Facebook. It's its own little community, and we post every day and talk with everybody who's in there. We do live streams every week, helping anybody in there with whatever it is that they need. You can join that for free. And then there's a deeper access point that's where there's a charge for. But then Instagram, Laura Spath or Chris Spath, I'm on there too. So come find us.
All right. Well, thank you very much again for sharing your story with us. And you have a great day. Tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock, Dr. Kiltz and I don't know who the guest is, but we'll be there at 6 a.m. Actually, I'm not going to be there because I'll be traveling to Las Vegas for the weekend. We have a meetup in Las Vegas, and the following weekend, traveling to Montello, Wisconsin, to help the Healing Humanity movie people.
Very
So
cool.
you all have a good day and eat meat.